Kait's landlord contacted us to say that he did not want Yoon living in that apartment anymore, that he had changed the locks. He told us that something very bad was going on in that apartment, that Kait was terrified, that she had had the locks changed several times to keep Yoon's friends out, and they had broken through a window, and Yoon had kicked through a door to get in, and that shortly before the shooting, Kait had run to the apartment manager's apartment in the middle of the night, begging to be allowed to spend the night on the sofa because she was afraid of Yoon and his friends. We gave that information to the police the night before Kait's funeral. They refused to take statements and did not want to know that information and withheld any mention of it from Kait's case file. We weren't the only people who contacted the police with information that they refused to take down and refused to put into the case file. One of them who contacted them was Roxanne, who was a personal friend of Kait's.
And it came time that you received a phone call from Don.
I got a phone call from him on a Sunday night. I know it was Sunday because I had to work the next day, and I know it was between 10 and 11 because we had just watched the news. And I thought, who is calling this late? Usually it's not good news, you know, but people didn't usually call me that late. And I didn't recognize him. He never called me. You know, she always made appointments for him. And he didn't speak very good English, and so he's screaming into the phone, and he's saying, "Kait dead, Kait dead, Kait dead." I was like, who is this? What is going on? Who is this? I don't even know what you're saying. Who is this? I was just trying to figure out who it was and what they were trying to tell me. And then I realized what he was saying, and I realized who it was. And of course, I'm shocked. I'm like, well, what is going on, you know? And that's all he could say. And he said he was going to go to the hospital, and I didn't know what to say. I was in shock too.
Did he say?
But I found out later he had called me before he was supposed to have even known, because he called me between 10 and 11, like right at, well, it was like 10:30. It was right after the news.
Well, tell me again what he was saying to you.
He just said, "Kait dead, Kait dead, Kait dead."
Did he say how she was dead?
Kait shot, Kait dead. But he didn't say who did it. He didn't say how it happened. That's all he said.
How did you try to give this information to the police?
I can't remember how long it was before I realized that something was really screwed up with him calling me at that hour. But I knew that I didn't trust him or the people that he was dealing with, and so I suspected them. And I called because they kept saying, oh, it was a random drive-by, and I just thought, it's not a random drive-by. It couldn't have been, you know, because she was upset about what was going on with these scams, and it just seemed connected to me. So I called sometime within that month, and I talked to Steve Gallegos, who was the investigator, and I told him what I knew, and I was pretty passionate about it because I was just, you know, I was mourning too, you know, and trying to help, and he just blew me off.
The startling thing about that phone call to Roxanne is that Roxanne is certain it occurred well before midnight. Police did not inform Yoon Win of the shooting until 3 a.m. when they went to the apartment that he and Kait shared and allegedly woke him up to break the terrible news. And then they left the apartment at 4 a.m. When I was paying Kait's final bills, I was paying her final phone bill, and discovered 3 phone calls to Orange County, California, made from Kait's supposedly unoccupied apartment as soon as she was pronounced dead. Yoon Win was with us at the hospital at that time. No one was supposed to be in that apartment. We gave that information to the police, asked them to follow up on it, find out whose numbers were called. They told us they were unable to do that because it was an unlisted number. So I contacted Mike Gallagher, an investigative reporter for the Albuquerque Journal, gave him the information and asked him if he could find out who was called from Kait's apartment. He was able to identify the numbers. They belonged to Beltran, who was the capper who set up the staged wrecks for the insurance fraud scam in Orange County. Mike Gallagher became very interested in the case, began to look into it himself. The police were not at all happy about having an outside investigator looking at Kait's case. In January 1990, they arrested 3 young Hispanic men for allegedly randomly shooting Kait. Those men were obviously set up because there was no evidence against them, and the district attorney dropped the charges and asked the police to look into the Vietnamese angle. The police refused to do that. Instead, they closed the case and said it was solved. I'm a writer by trade. I write under the name Lois Duncan. Since the police wanted nothing more to do with Kait's case, the only thing I could think to do to keep the information alive was to write a book about it. That book was titled Who Killed My Daughter, and it was published. The publisher sent me on a nationwide book tour. I appeared on many national television shows, and people around the country who had information about Kait's case began to contact us. One of those people was a private investigator from Albuquerque named Pat Caristo.